Hey class, after you finish all the shapes that you're able to draw with the built-in shapes, there's not that many, just the circle, squares, and triangles. So let's look at these other shapes. I'm actually going to use the gumdrop to explain two different ways that you can construct in Cuttle. The first way, most of you already know how to do, which is using this pen tool on the top. So let's zoom into the gumdrop and review how the pen tool works. So when I select the pen tool, I can now place anchors on my canvas. But these anchors will just draw straight lines from one to the next anchor. And if I click on the first anchor, then it actually creates a closed path. So if you go back and look at this, those are the 7 points. It didn't create an 8th point when I went back to the original point. It just changed my path to be closed instead of open. If I uncheck this, it will remove that last line, but I want it closed. Okay, so that is not the shape I want to draw, but I am going to use the pen tool, but I want some curves instead of just all these straight lines. So let's get rid of that, and let's see if we can trace this gumball. So I'm going to use the pen tool, and I'm actually going to be purposely not good at the pen tool. So I know this is going to be an anchor, and I know that I want this to curve this way. And so I want this line to be tangent to the curve that I want to create, which this may or may not work, but let's start with that. Okay, when I let go, that places that handle, and then I can choose the next anchor, which I'll put at the top of this gumball. And then I'm going to drag another tangent where I want this gumball to be. And let's say I'm just not really good, so I'm going to make it a little bit too long. Okay, now I'm going to add one more anchor, but I don't want the line to continue down. I want it to bend to the left. So for me to make this anchor free instead of tangent, I'm going to press down the Alt key, and then I'm going to move this handle out to be in this direction. So this isn't actually drawing the line. It's just saying that the next line is going to go to the left. Okay. Then I can let go, and then there's my handle out, and then I'm going to close my path. Okay, well, that is not the gumdrop I want, but like I said, I'm not great at the pen tool, so I at least place my anchors, and then I can switch back to select, and now I'm going to adjust some of my handles. Okay, so that should not be a curve. I want it to be a point, so I'm going to go over to this handle constraint and change it to free. And then that will allow me to adjust this handle separately from the bottom handle. Okay, until you get really good at the pen tool, you will likely make a lot of modifications. So I don't like the unevenness of this anchor, so I'm going to switch this anchor to be mirror, which just means both of my handles will be the same size. And the reason this is lopsided is because these two handles aren't the same. So let's see if I can make this one a little bit longer, and then I'm going to move this one in a little bit. Okay, so that is one way I can make this gumdrop. And let's change it to red and remove the hairline. And 0.505 or 0.06 is a good thickness. Okay, the nice thing about this is already using primitive graphics. I have a path and I have anchors. But there's an easier way for me to draw this. If I notice that a gumdrop is really just a truncated oval. So let's go back and let's look at our circle. So I noticed that if I could only cut off this oval, then this is a much easier way for me to make clean shapes, because a lot of times I want some symmetry in my shapes, but it's not a basic shape. So it's really, really close to a basic shape, but it's not. So in this case, if I could truncate this, if I could cut this off, then it would be a much faster construction of my gumdrop. I am going to take this rectangle and I'm going to tilt the bottom so that it aligns with that bottom edge. So now I have an oval and a rectangle. If I highlight both of these and I go to modify Boolean Intersection, now I have a gumdrop. Okay, but notice that in my gumdrop, I can still see my rectangle and my circle. I have basically created it as a group and then applied a modifier to that group. When I do this, that means that I could still modify the underlying rectangle if I wanted to. This rectangle is pretty good, so I don't really have to make any modifications to it. But let's say maybe on the circle, I wanted to tilt it a little bit to be the exact shape that I want. But when I'm done, if I know that I'm not really going to modify those two basic shapes, I can actually right-click on my intersection, either in the outline view or in the image, and I can say convert to paths. And now it is no longer an oval and a rectangle. It is the primitive graphics, which is a path of anchors. Okay, now I can go back and click red and undo the hairline. Oops.